Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the North East Non-League Show, sponsored by DJ Private Hire, Gateway Accountancy Services Limited, Elite Goalkeeper Academy, Motivate, Danny Lear, Plumbing and Heating, The Football Pink, and Sporting Journey North East Limited. So tonight is episode 103, which is our Northern League mid-season review show. Tonight's guests, we have Dan, James, and Steve. Lads, thank you very much for coming on the show tonight.
Pleasure.
Yeah. And I think we've already been chatting in the background. Obviously, our love for the Northern League and everything. It's just so much to talk about. It's brilliant, isn't it? But we're going to be starting in Division 1. And I think we've just been chatting about this before we came in. And I kind of said, up the top, I'm sure the last time we did a show, we had Rector and Blythe who was really pushing. There was a gap starting to come open. And as you say, there's so many games that's played week in, week out now. And I just look at the league table today, and all of a sudden you see Borough Rangers, Newcastle Blue Star, Shildon, Gisborough, North Shields all starting to push on, and obviously then playoff positions as well. I mean, what's your thoughts at the top in Division 1?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start if you want. I mean, for me, I think Redcar Athletic are top and would be expected to be top. Certainly pre-season. I mean, you look at the types of players they've brought in. I know they brought in quite a lot of the lads who were part of the really successful Mask team and their manager. You know, for me, there would be something wrong if they weren't running away with the league this season with the quality of players that they've got, you know. But that said, I mean, you're right. I mean, you look at that table. I mean, I'm looking at here now, and I mean, you know, they've got a lead and a game in hand over Blythe in second, but it's not a huge gap, you know. And then going into third place and fourth and fifth, and even teams like Gisborough in sixth, they're all a couple of points, you know. There's games to play. So I mean, it could be anything really, you know. For me, I think I would be surprised come the end of the season if Redcar don't go up as champions. Yeah. I think everyone would feel like that, but I wouldn't necessarily bet against it. You know, if something happening, you know, if you get hit a bad run of form or certain players are injured or what have you. I mean, Blythe or even Borough Rangers could potentially catch them. You know, it'd be interesting to see how it unfolds.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on that one, lads?
I'll let Dan go first and now.
All right,
I'll split the pass there, mate.
We have not choreographed this at all, have we? But yeah, you know, I think with Redcar, I think last season they kind of had that, you know, expectation on them, didn't they? And it just never really like clicked for them. I can remember that first game of last season against Berkeley quite vividly, where I think everyone was going into that game expecting Redcar to do great things last season. I think obviously, you know, 3-0 down in 12 minutes or whatever it was. I think that kind of just set the tone for the whole season of just you know, the like criminally underachieving. But I watched them back in October when they came to Northallerton on a Friday night, and obviously up until that point they'd been absolutely batting away teams. You know, I think that a week previous they'd beaten Borough Rangers 3-0 and what at the time was a first v second game, and I think after they'd done that, I think everyone thought that they'd run away with it, but I think we saw maybe different sides to them in that Northallerton game, because they only won the game 1-0, but I think we maybe saw the side, like the side to them that maybe showed why they could well be champions this year, and that obviously being maybe not being the vintage like sparkling best performance, but they got themselves stuck in, and they just ultimately did what they needed to do on the night. And you know, you can't win every game 5 or 6-0. Sometimes you have just got to grind it out. But you look at like who's like just behind them. You know, obviously you've got Blythe Town. I think obviously on the back of a highly successful season in Division 2 last season, where everyone's expecting them to maybe kick on and give a good account of themselves in Division 1. Like, you know, Blue Star aren't too far away. The Borough Rangers obviously had a fairly solid first season in Division 1 last season and looked to have kicked on again. Gisborough have been you know, there or thereabouts with regards to the playoffs. So like over the last few years, have just maybe fallen short a couple of times, but could they maybe push on this year and do that little bit extra? So yeah, I think obviously as a kind of neutral to the Northern League, you know, I thought it is dead exciting. Kind of looking forward to seeing how it all pans out. And look, there's going to be like plenty of twists and turns to come yet, I'm sure. Like I think Redknapp, I think later maybe had a couple of, like maybe lost a couple of games that perhaps maybe weren't expecting. I think Easington went to their place and turned them over the other week. So so the whole thing about Redknapp running away with the league, I mean, on paper, yes, they should be right up there, but like nothing's guaranteed. And I think like already we're seeing signs that it isn't going to be a total formality.
Yeah, great thought, James.
I think you look at the league table at the moment, and like Redcar have got a game in hand. The 3 points clear. Their goal difference is what, 4+14, better than any than Blythe Town in second. So you'd have to say that at this moment in time, they're the team to beat, the team to catch, and you'd expect them to be up there or thereabouts, if not getting automatic promotion come the end of the season. But you start looking a bit further down, and like Blythe, they've Blythe and Blue Star in particular. They came up last season from Northern League 2. Blythe kind of walked the league in the end, and Blue Star sneaked through into and getting promoted despite losing the playoff final. And but it's brilliant to see Blythe, Blue Star, and Easington, making a mark for themselves in Division 1. But you look at Borough Rangers as well. I mean, they had a fantastic start of the season. They've been like Stewie Rosie's been scoring goals for fun. It's a 28 you got this so far this season. They've had some fantastic wins, but they've kind of had a little bit of a rough patch lately. I think they've won one. I'm just looking at my form table here. I printed off before. Won 1, drawn 2, and lost 3 of the last 6 games. Only taking 5 points. And you think, if they got an extra draw or another win there, they'd be right on the heels there of Borough of Redcar Athletic. They'll be pushing on against them, but it's really close up there. As I say, you got to think Redcar Athletic are going to be the favourites, but any of the other 4, that they're in the playoff places at the moment, Blythe, Borough Rangers, Blue Star, and Shildon are going to be. They put a run together. They're going to be right up there. And the thing is, as well, there's no easy games in that league. There's teams. They've all got to. We're halfway through the season. There's a lot of games still to come. We haven't had that many postponements so far this season. So,
touch wood.
Let's give you the kiss of death. So sorry, everybody watching the Northern League when games get cancelled left, right, and centre the next couple of weeks. But there's a lot of games coming up, particularly over the Christmas period. I mean, some of the double headers on Boxing Day and then like the first weekend of the New Year. That's going to have a big part to play in and getting that momentum, and who goes on a good run at the right time. And like we said, I think we said this last season when I was on the show. All it takes is a couple of injuries, a couple of players being unavailable, or a suspension, or things like that. Your big players not being available, and then that can change, and momentum. You can lose it as quickly as you can gain it. Really, so it's going to be really exciting and interesting to see who actually gets up there. And like I think Steve said before, you look at Gisborough and North Shields. I mean, Crook, they're on a fantastic run. Them and Shildon at the moment. Won 5 and lost 1 each of those teams in the last 6 games, which is a hell of a run to be going on really in that league. And it just, as I said, they're just momentum.
Definitely, like you say, the 2 strikers. I mean, higher up level, you probably go 2 steps at least above. They both probably get games in the northeast teams up there. Frewster and Boys, 2 cracking strikers as well. But I think the massive, obviously, news that came out a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, Blythe Town, Michael O'Connor leaving, go to Blythe Spartans, and I think a lot of people expect the next news to be obviously Gav fell following. And I think it's massive for Blythe Town on that same day to come out and say, right, Gav's now staying as a manager. Obviously, brought a couple of cracking players in already, and I think that'll just give the club, the players, obviously that squad as well, the confidence to now push on as well. And I just think it's going to be really tight between Redcar and Blythe. But like you say, as a Northern League, neutral in that league, it's nice to see there's not just one team running away, because there's nothing worse at the top or at the bottom if there's one team getting beat every week or one team is walking away, is there?
You want to see competition. You want to see, close games and surprises. And, when you check on Twitter or Facebook there and see what the scores are from the league, quite often this season you'd be like, oh Christ, didn't expect that, or where's that result come from? And that's what makes these leagues so exciting, really.
Definitely. I mean, touching, obviously look at them teams that's in there, and as you mentioned, Crook 2 games in hand, West Stortland sitting in 9th as well. But you would expect now the playoff positions will be between them teams that we mentioned, but again, the playoffs, how exciting they're going to be come the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, playoffs are always, for a neutral fan, I think, really, interesting. I know there's a certain school of thought that questions how fair they are in the scheme of it, because if you're a team who does fantastic and just misses out on that that first place finish, and then you end up maybe getting beat off someone who finished any number of points behind you in fifth or whatever, you could argue the unfairness of it. But I think it's a tradition of football. It's how leagues, certainly in the professional levels, have operated for a long time, and I think, for me, it adds a bit more of an incentive, I think, towards the end of the season for teams to try and put that run together, to try and get that good vein of form where they can maybe make that last couple of games count. Because I think in recent years as well, I mean, even in the Northern League, when past couple of seasons when we haven't had playoffs, sometimes it's been a bit of a damp squib almost towards the end of the season.
Definitely.
I think I know the season when we finished third in the first division, there was no playoffs. It was the top two teams that went up, and it got to a certain point where, mathematically it wasn't going to happen. We weren't going to catch Shields, I think, in second place, and it just took a little bit of a shine off the whole thing. I mean, of course, we were still very happy and proud to finish third, but it was, I think, if there'd been a playoffs there, it would have really extended that, motivation for the team and certainly for the supporters. It just makes it a little bit more interesting, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think what the playoffs have done, I think, obviously, aside from obviously giving the sort of back end of the season a bit of a competitive edge, because you're absolutely right in what you're saying. I'd obviously when I'm sort of picking and choosing my games for certain weeks, I think when you get to the back end of the season, I was previously maybe a little bit reluctant to go to Northern League games, because I think when it gets March, April, there was a lot of games that meant absolutely nothing. Even if you had two teams facing each other that had perfectly good seasons, but there was no way they were catching the top two or anything. So I think it helps obviously in that respect, but as well, you look at the attendance figures at these playoff games over the last few years, and the benefit that has for all the clubs, for the clubs involved. I think obviously if you manage to get yourself a home game in the playoffs, it is massive for you financially, because all of a sudden your revenue on just even obviously entry fees, but just other things the people buying food, the people buying drinks, programs, raffle tickets, that kind of thing. It goes up at almost tenfold. So yeah, I think I think obviously aside from the keeping the leagues interesting and competitive right up until the very last kick of the season, I think it has helped all the clubs in terms of a financial side of it, and keeping themselves afloat, and to been able to just and I think as well even just the little things that can help towards maybe improving the pitch, or getting a new bar or something like that. That sort of thing could be absolutely massive for these clubs that are a real hub of their albeit relatively small communities.
Yeah, it's huge, isn't it, James? I mean, it keeps the excitement going. Even that mid-table pack, you might go on and run 3 or 4 games, and all of a sudden, we've got a playoff chance.
There's still a chance, to sneak in. It's all about what kind of run you go on, it's particularly after Christmas, and you get that. Keep going back and using what I said before, momentum. Though, if you're on a run and you can, there's that incentive to get there, to sneak into the playoffs. And often you've seen it so many times in professional football. How many times have the team who's just snuck into the playoffs? How many times have they, gone on to get promoted because they've got that run going, they've got that confidence going, and the other teams who are up there and secure in the playoffs, sometimes they kind of towards the end of the season kind of switch off. They know they're in the playoffs, they're not going to win, they're not going to get an automatic promotion, so they kind of mentally switch off, or they drop players to rest them or whatever. Not necessarily you might have that luxury in non-league, but it just keeps that excitement going and that interest going. And I think anything that does keep that excitement and interest and gets more people through the gate, gets more coverage, gets more social media coverage, or in local media as well, coverage for these games. I mean, wider across the the non-league scene at the moment in the Northeast. You've got like obviously the Pink, you've got this show, you've got things like the lead NL on Twitter and Facebook. People are trying to make an effort to get more people interested in the sport and in coming to games. And this is the playoffs are a fantastic way of doing that, because it just keeps interest going, and that's what we need to do, is keep interest in the league going. But that's not to say like there'd be nothing worse than getting the playoffs and losing. Sometimes it's nerve-wracking enough going to a league game, let alone a playoff game where promotion is on the line, and the difference and change that could make to the clubs going forward.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, before we get into talking about the relegation, just looking at some surprise packages so far this season, teams that might not be doing so well, and managers and players stand out. I mean, just a bit of open chat about this one. I mean, starting with the surprise packages, I think, obviously, I know Blythetown did come up and a few expected, but I know at the start of the season, I put them actually down to win the league, just like you say, because of the experience and, like you say, the people that's there at the club. Borough Rangers, no mugs as well. Obviously, nice surprise to see them up there this season as well. Crook doing really well. Easton, like you say, holding their own. Is there any other teams out there, lads, that you were kind of putting there who you're kind of surprised with?
I'm going to give a quick shout out. I think the North Allerton, I think they've, from where they were last season, just on the edge of close to relegation, and kind of like, they're not setting the world alight, but they're solid in there, the bottom end of the mid range of the table there. So I think, for them, that's a big thing. And I think, as well, Kendall, a bit of an unknown quantity coming into this league, from the other side of the Pennines, and the hassle they had in terms of changing leagues and moving from Northwest Counties across into the Northern League, and the travel that the additional travel they've got and all that. Fair play to them. I think they've done really well so far this season. I think they've got aspirations to be pushing on towards the playoffs. But I think what you've mentioned there in terms of Blythe, they've done to be second. I think coming up into a league and then moving up, and then obviously Blue Star. I mean, 2 years, 2 consecutive promotions, and then to be fourth in the league. Fair play to them. That's
great thanks to Dan.
Yeah, I'd go on with North Allerton as well. Obviously, a team that I watch a fair bit, and I think you can notice like I know I've been to a few games this season. I've seen them lose a few times, but the difference has been they have been competitive in every single game that I've seen them in so far. I think maybe when I saw them last season before that, or whatever, they almost got like drawn out. You almost go into the games expecting them to get beaten. Obviously there's the odd day where it might not, but I think this time, you could see it like right from pre-season. It just looked a lot sharper. It's the style of play is just much better. I think we're having a little bit of a chat about them off air, weren't we? Like they've had all the right ideas and like playing like football the right way. It's just been a bit of a lack of cutting edge in the final third. And at the start of the season, they had Harry Croft, who kind of helped with that, but I'm not sure where he's gone, to be honest. But we've seen today that they've brought in Eddie Thomas, a player that's certainly been around the clubs, and I think that could be a good addition and what North Allerton kind of need at this moment in time. But I'm not gonna lie, I kind of expected Benfield to struggle a little bit this season. Just they don't appear to be. So the fair play to whatever's causing the turnaround there. So I think they're kind of another one that's I think in the season previews, I think everyone was tipping them to struggle, but they've kind of proven everyone wrong. So but fair play to them.
Yeah, agree with them on stage.
Yeah, I mean, I think I echo what's already been said. Really, I mean, it's hard to argue against it. I think for me, the likes of Blythetown, Blue Star coming up from the second division, and to be fair to them, coming up to this level of football, because I've obviously played for a couple of years outside of the Northern League, and for them to adapt that quickly to the first division, and anyone who watches games across it or seen their team play in the first division knows the difference in quality and how the game is. It's a huge gulf, and I think for them to go through and adapt to that, fair play to them. You know what I mean? And I don't. I mean, I might be wrong on this one, but I don't know that they've made like wholesale changes in the players. I think they've had a fairly consistent squad across the those teams, which probably is part of the reason why it's worked so well, because you've got that group of guys who've clicked really well together. So good for them. And then again, like looking at the table, I mean, great to see Gisborough up there. I always big up the clubs on Teesside myself, just because I do, you know what I mean? I think we forget that Teesside's part of the Northern League sometimes, like outside of. But no, I mean, fair play to Gisborough. Strange one, really, I guess, for them when with Steve Bell and Paul Craig leaving, sort of a few weeks back or whenever it was now, because they've been fairly consistent. Obviously, I guess there's things maybe that we're not aware of and reasons behind the scenes for why that's happened. But the new guy that's come in has continued that good work. They've got some really good players in there, a couple of good ex-Thornaby lads. Joe Pickett, who's a fantastic player, and James Fraser and stuff. So, for me, I think that, if they can make it into the playoffs, that's well deserved for them. But yeah, I mean, like I say, looking across that table again, Crook are doing very well so far this season, so fair play to them. And yeah, I mean, it's there's a couple of teams there that definitely deserve a pat on the back for what they've achieved so far this season, I think, and then you can see that's reflected in the results. So.
Yeah, looking good, isn't it? I mean, teams that we can say not doing well, but I think it's more kind of you expect a little bit more before the start of the season. And just touching on a few of those teams, managers and players now. So, I mean, I think looking me personally now, when we plan to come on the show and chatting about it, you look at the likes of Wickham, obviously down there struggling. You hope we might get out of it. West Allotment, obviously, I know they had the news last week. It seems things are turning around again, which is really good to see. You never want to see your club go under. I think Berkeley Town, obviously last season, they were a massive punch well above the weight, and obviously with the two lads leaving over there, Summer Bryson as well, it's a fantastic management there. Personally, I think once they're left, you knew it was going to be a little bit struggle this season. I hope the fans kind of expected that, because I think after the season that they had, we're never going to repeat that the season after. And I think Whitley Bay as well, obviously bringing new management and new players over the summer. I think you're expecting a little bit more from them as well with the surprise packages. Getting on to managers myself, personally, Ollie at Easerton. It was a funny one actually, because we were just chatting in the barber shop. It was on the day before he played rec, and he just says, "I've got to play rec tonight. I think it was 4 16-year-olds on the bench. We had lads calling in 6. I think they're playing rec and come away with the win." You see, I think we just met down the Hubbard a couple of weeks ago, and he said exactly the same thing. I think he chat with you every week. So he wasn't expecting nothing from that game. I'd like to see Steve Connolly as well coming to Gisborough. Fantastic there. Matty Crook as well, fantastic. And I think you kind of look at the players. You touched on Rose before, 28 goals, I'm sure, this season. Like you say, the strikers all doing the jobs, like Brewster at Wrecker as well. I mean, just again, open table about it again. Surprise packages, managers, players doing well. We'll start get yourself away, lads. Who's going first?
Manager for me, I just mentioned before in terms of Newcastle Benfield potentially struggling. They had a management change early in the season. Andrew Ferguson came in there, and he's kind of like, he got off to a really good start and kind of steadied the ship a bit and kicked them on. So I think he's done a really good job going in there. I'd picked out Steve Connolly at Gisborough there, like you mentioned before, and I know he's only just been in post, but we mentioned it before. Blythe Town, Gavin Fell staying there. That's huge for them, that consistency and moving on. I think you've stolen quite a bit of my thunder there, to be honest. And some of the points I picked up, I mean, towards the bottom and the teams that are struggling. Obviously, the news came out last week about West Allotment the other week when they had to postpone that fixture, and that you immediately think the worst's going to come. But it seems to be positive, and expecting some announcements. I think I saw on that Twitter feed before they're going to be releasing some information in the next few days, which is really good to see. And you kind of want, we want these teams to survive. We want them to kind of, to be competitive and to be, part of the league. So that's really good to see. But I think, it's going to be a struggle for Towlaw and Wickham. They're starting to be a little bit cast adrift there. But then you've got Red Star, and Red Star, and Berkeley, as you mentioned. It's trying to it's that kind of second season syndrome. Where they've come up and had a fantastic first season, set the personal fire effectively, and then consolidate, and then it's the big thing for them is to stay up this season and then build on from there, really. But it's such a tough league, that it's such a competitive league as well, and we've seen that that result you mentioned when Easington beat Redcar, nobody would have predicted that. But that's what makes the league as good as it is, really.
Yeah. Who's next on that one, Steve? Dan?
Yeah, I know it's probably in terms of managers. Now it's probably a little bit again Northallerton bias, but I think Jason Newell's really does deserve a massive shout because you got to remember he was at Richmond last season, so to make a two league leap, it was quite a big gamble from him. He brought a lot of his team from Richmond over with him. So I really don't think you can underestimate the turnaround at Northallerton to tell you the absolute truth. I was chatting to one of the club officials in after one of the games in pre-season, and they're also saying, obviously they've brought a lot of players over from Richmond, but they're hoping in the long run, once the players can maybe see what they're trying to do there, it might be something of an attraction point for them. And I think so far they're kind of on schedule, but then again, you look at the flip side of the coin. I was expecting more from Wickham. I'm not going to lie. I think they're on paper they've got a fairly decent squad.
Yeah.
Bertley, they're falling off a bit, but I think then again, I think most people maybe realistically expected them to, because I think you could argue there is an argument that they maybe overachieved a little bit last season, but I think obviously I think they will get to a point where I think they'll stay up, and I think they'll in time they'll perfectly well establish themselves in that league. But I think this in this league, but I think I think so far it has been ultimately a bit of maybe a reality check for them above all else this season so far. But then again, there's plenty of good people at that club, so there's that, and I'm fairly sure they'll have their heads well above water come the end of the season.
Yeah, fair that one, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're all kind of echoing each other's viewpoints, really. But I think Towlaw, I know that that maybe things have picked up recently, but again, they do look like they're going to be cast adrift at the bottom, I think, unfortunately. I know that they've flirted with that kind of relegation for quite a few years from the First Division, so it's one of those times where this season maybe is going to be the one where they just kind of fall through that trapdoor, unfortunately, and don't just manage to avoid it. Surprised at Wickham, to be honest. For me, I mean, again, I'm not like massively following what goes on in the First Division, because I tend to focus on where Division 2 with Thornaby, but for me, Wickham have always come across as one of those kind of upper mid-table sort of sides, where they've always done quite well. Maybe not quite promotion quality at every season, but certainly competitive. So I was quite surprised actually to look at the table and see just how far down they are. And they're only 3 points away from Towlaw, who are bottom. Again, we don't know what's going to happen the next half of the season. Things could change down there. Seaham, again, obviously not having the best of seasons. I think it does, what I'd actually written down, although in terms of relegation, I guess it depends on how many people go down. I know that things at West Allotment, I know West Allotment's situation now is looking potentially a lot better. Obviously, a couple of weeks ago, there was the very real possibility that they could have folded and, left the league, which would have caused havoc in terms of who gets relegated. And I mean, that would have actually impacted that level nationally, I think, in terms of who was relegated and who gets reprieves and those sorts of things. Again, Bertley, I agree. I think they had a very good season last year, did very, very well. And I think some of that we'll often see is teams who do very well in that second division come up and carry that momentum across, and for whatever reason they haven't really. But yeah, I mean, I think for me, looking at that sort of the bottom part of that table, I don't expect a great deal to change. I think that your bottom three are probably going to stay where they are. In all honesty, I think if West Allotment can turn things around off the pitch, which we all hope that they do, and very best of luck to them, resolving whatever the problems are they're having. I'd expect them to start maybe picking a couple of points up on the pitch as well. So I think the bottom three is probably quite set. Could Towelaw pull a great escape? Maybe. We'll wait and see, I guess, and that'll certainly make an interesting end of the season at the bottom of that table, really. But yeah, and like I say, I mean, for me, that's where it's at with that. I think in terms of the management, I think, like you say, fair play to Northallerton. I've got to echo what everyone else has said. I think to make that step up from Wearside League level, which I think Richmond were playing at or still play at, into the first division of the Northern League is a huge jump. And fair play to those lads that have come across with the manager as well, because that in itself is a huge step. So no, and respect where it's due, and I think that they've done great as well, so.
Oh, it's looking a good division, isn't it? And a couple of comments coming in there. I know we're going to touch on Division 2 now. Bobby just mentioning, Mickey, Bobby at Esh, which, we'll get on in a second. I think I've got him named on my list. He's doing a fantastic job as always. Personally doing a fantastic job, Esh, in a very limited budget, which we'll get on to as well. Colin just mentioned personally, I think we would be okay at Berkeley. Stopping up after losing a couple of important players would be a half-decent scene. Yeah, totally agree. Like we just said there, with obviously the management leaving, good players leaving as well. A lot of squad mix-up. It'd be nice to see them. Obviously, they look very comfortable. Like I say, I don't think we'll go down at all as well. Mickey's asking, do you think with cost clubs like Eschwood and Exeter, the overheads will decrease in the Northern League? I think, like you say, it's just a running cost all the time, isn't it? I know now being in the committee, you see it from a different side of clubs now, and
God, yeah.
I think you look at the referees' costs. They come out every day now, and every game they'll go, right, we need 150 quid for the ref, and the assistant is thinking, wow, that's gone, the floodlights, this, that, and you're just thinking, wow, it's just a never-ending outgo budget, and you just got to scrimp and save and beg, and like you say, it's just doing different things on social media every day to try and get money in. It's so hard, isn't it?
Definitely. It's, you start on the committee now at Yarmouth Eagles Cliff, and you just start looking at the finances, and it's like, wow. When we haven't got a huge budget compared to a lot of teams, and trying to manage that, and it's a massive undertaking, and that's why we're talking before about getting more people through the crowd, through the gates, getting more people to come and watch. Every single person who comes through and pays that £5-6 or whatever it is, coming through and buys a pie, gets a drink, tea, coffee, bottle, or whatever, it all adds up. And all the kind of social media coverage, it's just vital for clubs.
That's what Nick's mentioning there as well. On about the hubs and stuff. And I know we had that game a few weeks ago against Washington, over 300 people there, and I was pretty much crying. You see all the people coming through, but then you see all the money going into the hub, people buying cans, but we're not seeing any of that money. It was just horrible thinking, God, we're getting all these people down, and all we had is a football card and something else, and it's you cannot win it either way, can you? It's a nightmare at times. It really is. But like you say, Division 2, I think it's even more exciting than Division 1. I know, James, Steve, you're very excited to touch on this league now. I know you're both involved in this one.
Well, we've gone 33 minutes on Division 1, and we were talking before that we didn't have much to talk about. We didn't know too much, so we managed to find out a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think anyone realised that neither of us actually watch any First Division.
Winged it, Steve. Winged it.
They've done well, haven't they? Done very well.
Yeah, they've done all right, to be fair.
Good stuff. But Division 2, like you say, absolutely massive. Well, any more comments? Keep getting them in. I know there's a few watching now. So any teams that you support, how do you think your season's gone so far? How do you think it'll end? Get them in the comments below. I think we're going to touch on again. Obviously, Division 2, James, it was all over. The Yarm West End game. We've just never seen nothing like it before, have we?
Did make happen there? I can't remember. Yeah, it was. That was just, well, we discussed it on the plenty, I think, but that was just a mental 7 minutes. I think I said when we were on BBC Newcastle together, when we were really in there, it was quite possibly our worst 90 minutes of the season, followed by our best 7 minutes. It was just mental, and it's one of those games that'll just I'll never ever forget. West End deserved to win. They're one of my surprise teams this season. Just how well they're playing, and we've played them twice this season, and both times we've had to have late goals, to get the win. But that's testament to what our club, and that kind of never say die. Just keep going, keep that momentum, keep pushing, keep working, and it came off. But yeah. Our start of the season's been, unbelievable, really. Over halfway second in the league. If you'd have given that offered us that at the start of the season, I'd have bit your hand off. We're right in the mix of the playoffs. I think Horden are in the box seat. They're in a really strong position. They've got a game in hand over us. They're 2 points ahead of us, and then obviously we're sandwiched between Horden and Jarrah. Jarrah have had a fantastic season so far. Again, one of the better teams we've played this season. We've beaten 3-2 in a really, really entertaining game at home earlier. I think it was about September time, and they were quality that day. And then they're on a fantastic run of form at the moment. I think they've won 6 on the bounce.
Yeah, they will.
And credit to them up there. And they've got a couple of games on hand, and then obviously Esh. They've done so well this season, and I think Mickey there in the comments, the budget that they've got and what they've managed to do, and they've done really, really well, and they're right in the mix. And then Thornaby, so solid defensively, one of the toughest teams to break down. You're not getting lots of goals in their games. It's 1-0, 1-0s, or when that's what you got to keep them winning, keep them going. I think you've added a few games recently, Stephen. You've scored a few, and I think we've got you next week after the rearranged game after it was postponed last weekend.
Tuesday night, I believe. Yeah,
Tuesday
the 3rd.
night, yeah.
It's been rearranged too. So,
yeah. So another Teesside derby for us, and then you look a little bit further down, and Prudhoe, Wrighton, FC Hartlepool, they're all in the mix, and even down Chesley Street United, Chesley Street Town, they're not that far off. Putting a few games together and getting a decent run going, and they'll be right in the mix. I mean, we play FC Hartlepool on Saturday away at Greyfields, and I know that's going to be a really, really tough game. They're a quality side. They're on a decent run. They had that fantastic annihilation really of Bolton the other week when I think was it 10-2 when they won. So they're scoring goals for fun at the moment, so that'll be a tough game. But it's just so close up the top. It's nip and tuck really, and look at some of the games coming up. I mean, I think we played Jarrah on the 21st of December, and then Boxing Day they play Horden, and then it's the back, and then the first, I think it's the 3rd or 4th of January. It's the reverse fixture, Horden against Jarrah. So 3 huge games for Jarrah there over a couple of weeks, which will go a long way to kind of shaping their season and shaping Yarm and Eagles Cliffs and Horden season as well. I'm going to shut up now because I could keep talking for ages, but it's only fair to give Steve and Dan a chance to comment as well. Apologies.
He's just low, man. It's brilliant, man, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, sorry, Dan, did you want to go first?
No, you can go after. I'll let you go. You support a Division 2 side, so
okay, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, for me, the top 4 is pretty solid, locked in.
Yeah,
we're quite adrift in a sense in 5th place at the moment on 43 points. Obviously, we've got a game in hand, but that still gives us that kind of 6-point gap between us and Esh. I think what's interesting from our point of view is that our next 3 games, we play Esh winning on Saturday, then we play Yarm and Eagles Cliff on the Tuesday, and then the game after that is at Horden. So we've literally got 3 games on the bounce. That
2 wins and a loss there, Steve, please.
Well, I was hoping for 3 wins personally, but we'll see in the interest of friendship. But no, I mean, so again, I mean, it's a big ask to expect 3 wins from those games, but it's not impossible. And I think that could then throw us right back in that mix. I think realistically, we're all expecting Horden to probably win the league this season, just purely because of their consistency. Yeah. But even then, I mean, you look at the table; it's not out of question for really I'd say any of the top 3, maybe even the top 4. Mm-hmm. Could possibly hit it. I mean, if Horden might hit a bad vein of form, if there's key injuries, we don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully we don't have a lot of postponements, but when we get that usual fixture build up towards the end of the season, that can impact things. So, like I say, for me, I mean, what you said earlier about the 2nd division arguably being even more exciting than the 1st division, I think you're right. I think even looking at us, I mean, we're in the playoffs at the moment with 43 points. We're 3 points ahead of Prudhoe in 6 with a game in hand. But, you look at that table and realistically, I mean, anyone as far down as even 9th or 10th could possibly sneak that last place. Mm-hmm. We're in a good position, but we're not in a safe position by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think such a thing really exists in football. But, I think we're definitely like I say, we've got a solid defense. We had that fantastic run at the beginning of the season where we hadn't conceded in, I forget exactly what it was, but it was something like 700 minutes of football or something completely mental like that. Ironically enough, it was Esh winning that actually broke that duck when we went up to theirs. And then we beat them, of course, 3-2 with 2 late goals. So, yeah, I mean, I'm surprised, in all honesty. I think we talk about, like, the surprises of who's up there, and I have to say us. I don't want to sound like I'm being modest when I say that. I think that events over sort of the end of, well, not even the end of last season, but over the summer, which I'm not going to go over because they've been gone over, and we've all as a club have very much moved on from that now. And there was points in the summer where there was one morning where potentially the club might have folded because of what had ggon on. And for us to then sort of come in, and a lot of us, myself included, have come in and taken on roles at the club. A lot of us who've never ran a football club before. We've got people who've come in with a lot of good business knowledge and things, but in terms of the day-to-day kind of running of a club and the things we have to do, we're still finding our feet, and we're still sort of feeling around sometimes and maybe winging it sometimes like that, So for me, to see us doing as well as we're doing this season, and knowing the work that goes on behind the scenes, from the guys who help run the club, from the board level, from the management team, obviously Andy Campbell working now as a director of football for the club, who is absolute top fellow, got all the time in the world for Andy, really nice bloke. And interestingly, he'd actually put a piece out on our social media this afternoon, I read about, where he even said himself, like, if you'd told us that we'd be in the playoffs at this point in the season, you probably wouldn't have believed any, if he was saying that. So I'm very impressed with how we've done. I think, like, we've definitely surprised ourselves. I don't know, other people might have felt maybe, looking at the team, we might have done okay, but we've done good. And credit to Dino and his team and all of our lads really for doing that. They've really pulled it out this season and kept it incredibly tight. Dino set the team up where it's not necessarily very interesting or attractive football, but effective. I think that's the difficulty sometimes we have as fans. We all want to see really exciting games, where it's 4-5-0s or 6-5s or loads of goals and stuff. But I think effectively sometimes you look over historically, and sometimes those teams that have done very well have been the ones that have done the basics right and kept it tight at the back.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And I certainly buy into that kind of philosophy that if you don't concede, you don't lose. You know what I mean? And I get the feeling that, like, they've taken that on board, and like I say, it's not always necessarily pretty to watch sometimes, and I'm sure Dino and the lads will admit that themselves, but it's effective. And ultimately it's the results that count, and so far, we're doing really well, and I'm proud of the team, really.
Oh, really good, isn't it? And Danny, being impressed with Division 2 this year?
Yeah, I've got to say, also the very first game I went to in pre-season actually involved Yarn. Played away.
Richmond won it against Carrick.
Away to Richmond. It was in a cage in Carrick Garrison, essentially. Yeah. But I've got to say, that night I kind of watched them. I know we always say you shouldn't read too much in the friendlies, but I just got the feeling from the patterns of play, like the overall quality that was within that team. I watched them that night and I thought, you know what, this lot, I after watching that, I kind of expected them to be up there. So I've got to say, I'm really not surprised that they're doing so well on that basis. I mean, they might be a bit more kind of modest about it, and they say that they've maybe surprised themselves somewhat, but yeah, I've got to say, I'm not particularly too surprised to see it out there. I think Jarrow, I was maybe expecting to be a bit more mid-table. I think that's kind of been the pattern for them since they came up, but they've seemed to have kicked on a little bit more this year. I had them watched at Washington in the early part of the season. It wasn't the best of games, but they got it won. And as Steve was just touching upon there with Thornaby, sometimes obviously as spectators or as fans or whatever, you want to be entertained, but I think if you actively do support a team, you'd you don't care how good or bad the game is, just as long as the result favours you. So I think obviously Jarrell has shown that there's that side to him as well. And there's been a guy in the comments that's commented on Esh winning a couple of times, and fair play to them, because if you go into any Division 2 season and you're asked to sort of name a team off the top of your head who you think might actually struggle a bit, then 9 times out of 10 you're going to say Ash winning. So fair play to them. They've really pushed on. The Thornaby thing kicked on a little bit more from last year as well. So that's it'd be interesting to see if they can get back to like sort of maintain the position that they're in. And obviously we were just saying there, they're in a good position to potentially do that. But then again, still no guarantees. I mean, it doesn't matter how good you are, every team will have a drop in form at some point. So so there's going to be a lot of twists to come yet. But I think from what I've seen from Division 2 so far, I think the team I probably have been most impressed with has been Yarm, I've got to say.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Like you say, I've seen a lot of the games this season. I've seen Horden on Saturday gone. Didn't play the best, but like you say, they just graft away and get that win in the end. Some quality players in there. Yarm, very good physical side, really good side. Jarrah, obviously you've got goals coming from all over. Esh as well, like you say, up there as well. I think that top four now is starting to take a little bit shape. I think we touched on before the show. I think the playoffs, I think it was 5th down to 10th. I think it was a 9-point swing. The likes of Thornaby, Prudhoe, Wrighton FC, Hartlepool, Chester Street United, Chester Street Town in there as well. And I think with that pack there, and I think I touched on kind of going from 11 down, I think it's about a 5-point gap or 6-point gap. And I'd say that's starting to open up a bit more over the next few weeks as well. I'd say that top 10 really pushing on between them for the playoff spots, and obviously a team to win the league as well. But I mean, looking at, I was laughing before James when he mentioned Kenny at Jarrah, obviously 4 or 5 years on big. So I know he won the Manager of the Month award in the group in August, and I think we put him in I think he didn't win a game for another 3 games after that. I think the Kendal Town manager won it. I think they didn't win a big game for 3 games. And Sunderland West End obviously won it last month, and they haven't won 5 and 5 games, I think. So I'll say no more about that. So I don't think any manager wants to win at the end of this month. So nobody will be voting for the managers this time around. But it's just looking good. But I mean, looking from 11th down with that gap opening now, I mean, you're looking at sides who, again, not saying having a poor season, but struggling where you expect a little bit more from them. You're looking at Billington, Thonia. And I was speaking to the lads who came out, obviously, from management there a couple of weeks ago, and they just said something's just not right, ticking behind the scenes there. Wrecker Town been struggling a couple of years now. I expected them to kind of push on a little bit. And obviously, Sunderland RCA, obviously dropping down from Division 1. You just think with someone in the area, you might get a hold of them, get a manager in, and like you say, some players to push on with again, really struggling down there. Is anyone kind of looking at the league table now where you kind of thought, before the season, I expect them to be a little bit higher, or even teams surprising at the top who's supposed to be down there, do you think?
For me, the one that kind of jumps out that the league position's false, certainly based on the 2 games we've had against them this season, is Sinners. We beat them at home early October, I think. A last minute header, like a 93rd minute header from our striker Josh Larkin. Got the 3 points there, and it was a tough physical game. And then after the 6-5 game, we played them midweek. And a rearranged game moved from April because of Stockton Town's fixtures. We played them midweek on a Wednesday night, and we got turned over 3-0. And they were really, really strong that night. We had a fair few chances, but they took the lead and didn't look back. Really, they were strong, physical, direct. Really kind of caused us issues. So I think for me, they're the team that I would have thought would have been a bit higher up. And I think if they've got the new management team in place there, and I think they've got some really good players, and I think they'll kick on. I think that the surprise teams for me are, as I mentioned before, West End. I think they've compared to where they were last season, and they kind of moved up. And as I said before, they played some fantastic football against us. They deserved at least 3 points from the 2 games that we've played against them. And the other one's Chesley Street United.
Yeah.
You know, they've just so much, like, you know, obviously, I think it's a really, really interesting and good model that they've got in terms of bringing those younger players through and linking in with a college, and they're all, you know, they're all under like 19 or 20 and under, and they played some good football, and you know they're much more physical and stronger and well organised than they were last season. We played them twice last season, and we won both games 1-0. They beat us 1-0 early on in the season. Another late goal, but the wrong end this time. It was a 93rd minute. That was a 93rd minute winner for them, and then we beat them a couple of weeks ago at the Hub. Dominated them first half, and then had a player sent off second, and then they came back into it, but we held firm. But I was, you know, impressed with them and the run that they've been on. They've got some really good results. I think just looking a bit further down the tail, you mentioned like Redcar Town. I think I just want to, you know, the couple of teams that came up, Darlington Town, they've started, started well. You know, they're doing okay. You know, sort of bottom end of mid table, but you know, looking relatively comfortable again. You know, and then Alnwick and Grangetown. I mean, you know, Grangetown, you know, I think they found it a little bit tough coming up there, and they've lost some, you know, some close games, or they've had some late goals against them. They're looking at kind of going their way, and sometimes when it gets like that, it becomes quite difficult. And then obviously Alnwick as well. They've kind of had a little bit of a rough patch lately. You know, but I think they've had a tough run of fixtures. And I just, again, with Alnwick, just one thing, just to shout out to them for their clubhouse is fantastic. We had an absolutely fantastic day up there. So anybody who's going to do an away day up at Alnwick, cracking day out that was. You know, really, really, really friendly people, cracking little clubhouse. But you know, you're like, it's tough when you first come up. You know, that step up, the kind of the level of fitness, the level of quality. You know, games keep going to the very end and beyond, and it's, you know, it's tough for those teams, and hopefully they'll kind of pick up. But I think it's looking a little bit bleak for Washington though down the bottom. You know, they did have that win against Terriers the other week when they won. Was it 4-0 they won? And you know, hopefully they can,
wasn't it? Yeah, a few new players as well, I think.
Yeah, new management team and new players in. Hopefully they can kind of kick on. But yeah, it's just but it was, you see, like, anybody can beat anybody really in this league. Again, it's an open game. Anybody can beat anybody on the day.
No, it's a good shout to Chester United one. I think the 4Gs definitely helped as well. You see them on grass last season.
Yeah.
I mean, they came on and admitted to themselves, look, we train them day in, day out on 4G. We're going to play on grass. They're not used to it, and you can see it.
Well, I think their away form's been better than their home form though a lot of the season. Chester's I think, you know, they've done really well away from home. But yeah, you're right in terms of playing on the 4G makes all the world of difference for them. You know, being able to pass the ball around and no bobbles, or some of the pitches can be a little bit interesting at times.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, any self, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think for me, I guess we all look pre-season and think, oh, who's signed who and what players have gone where and what type of squads are they putting together, and you get kind of an image in your mind of maybe where those teams are going to be come the end of the season, or what sort of season they're going to have, you know, in terms of performances. For me, I mean, like James has said, I mean, fair play to Darlington Town making that step up and being fairly solid where they are. If I'm being honest, I maybe expected a little bit more from them, especially with some of the players that they brought in. You know, I mean, I'm sure, you know, again, and I'm not having a go and I'm not slighting them at all, but I think we look at the likes of Liam Jarvie coming in from Aycliffe, I think he came in from, was it? You know, and again, he's having a good season. I think he's on about 12 or 13 goals so far this season. But it's just, it for me, I think, like, I thought maybe they'd be a little bit more up there. Again, Sinfonia, again, the beginning of the season, they had a fantastic start, you know. They were doing very well. I watched them play against Billingham Town at Stockton earlier
I was
in the
there
season.
at that game as well.
Yeah. And for me, like the link-up play between Matty Wilshaw and Declan Brown, I mean, it was unreal. They looked so good together, you know. And I thought watching that game, I thought that they were unlucky not to score more than they did. I think Billingham Town put up a really good, solid defensive performance. I don't know that they ever really threatened on the attacking side of things, but for me, looking on that game and looking at how they played together and looking at the goals they were scoring, I thought maybe this is a good season for Sinfonia, you know, that they're going to really do well.
I think injuries and suspensions with them, though, it's kind of cost them on it.
Yeah, very much. they hit that little rough patch and they've suffered as a result of it. You know, I think they played us at our place. We beat them 1-0. And controlled that game quite well. And I think, I'm not saying that we were the reason, but since then, I think maybe their form's not been as good. They've struggled a bit. Again, you talk about surprises. Again, for me, I mean, I think when Billingham Town announced that they brought Jamie Poole as manager, he brought in a couple of lads who, although maybe towards the sort of the end of their kind of Northern League levels, the likes of Jamie Owens. Certainly Dale Hobson isn't anywhere near the end of his career. He's only young. I'm not having a go at him. But, they've brought lads in who you look on paper and think, wow, those are kind of players who can change games for them. And so far this season, it hasn't really clicked for them. They are certainly improving in recent, and they're scoring a lot of goals. They seem to have a lot of goals in that team. And I wonder maybe if they were just struggling initial in the season with the defence, maybe, and that was part of their problem. I know that they threw away quite a couple of leads, where they were 1-0, 2-0 up, and then the game finished and they ended up somehow losing it and things like that. I think if they tighten that up, that they'll do well. I think Grangetown, again, it's always a bit of an unknown when clubs come up from step 7, the level 11 and what have you, from the North Riding League in their case. And I think it seems to be it's either one or the other. Either they hit the ground running and do very well and in some instances go straight back up again and end up in the first division, or in this case maybe it's a little bit more of a struggle for them this season. They haven't really been very consistent from what I can see. They're picking up points here and there, but they just don't, for whatever reason, it's just not working quite well. They haven't quite adapted yet to the second division standard, maybe. I know they had a change in management and I think a couple of players moved around and stuff.
Yeah.
I think, in all honesty, again, we talked about the first division. Relegation is never a clear thing. Sometimes, neither's promotion, to be fair. Sometimes even we're still in, May, maybe even the beginning of June, and we still don't really know for certain who's been relegated and who's been promoted.
That's crazy,
I think, which is insane for me. I mean, I think it's whoever's in charge of those decisions really should. The FA maybe needs to sort that out, and have these things done so clubs can plan and they know what they're doing, But I think, Washington do look adrift. I know that they've certainly improved a little bit lately, but is it a bit late now in the season for them to put like a really good run together? I don't know. We'll wait and see. But I mean, again, it depends. I mean, we say Washington are possible candidates to get relegated, but it does, of course, depend on is there clubs who could come up.
Yeah.
I won't lie. I'm not sure who the likely candidates for promotion into the Northern League are at the moment. I don't think there's anyone from the North Riding League who would meet ground grading. Who's in that kind of position to take promotion. Not sure about the Wearside League or the Northern Alliance, but they might find themselves not getting relegated, even though they do finish bottom. So it's hard to really kind of say at the moment. It's a difficult one. But I mean, I look at that and I think, there's teams for me who on paper should be performing better than they are. I know that's a great cliche in football, that what's on paper isn't what's on the field, and it doesn't always work like that. But I think those, I'm seeing teams who are maybe improving, who are picking up points here and there, and and perhaps that's what they want. I mean, the likes of Grangetown might be at the moment as a club quite happy to just stay up that first season, and they can look at building on that in years to come, in seasons to come. And they're one of the clubs on Teesside I know have got a very strong youth section. They've got a lot of young kids coming through potentially, so that's always going to be a good source of players for them to bring lads into the senior teams. So I mean, for me, I think that there's potential there as a club. I don't think they're someone who's going to come up in one season and then disappear. I think if for example someone like Grangetown did slip into the relegation, I'd expect them to come back. I think that they've got that infrastructure there now. They seem to have the club running right. They've got the source of young players to come through and bring through, so they're not necessarily having to pay out lots of wages and complicate things in those respects. So yeah, I mean, there's a couple of teams really who've surprised me, who've maybe aren't doing as well as I would have expected them to. But I mean, that's not to criticise anyone, though. You know, I mean, it's a tough league, and as you've kind of touched upon already, seeing things from a different point of view now, from being involved in the running of a club, I totally appreciate anything. I mean, if you can put a team out and you can put the floodlights on, and you know you can pay your referee fees and stuff, then you're doing a good job. You know what I mean? So fair play to you for being able to even put a team out. I think the way things are at the moment in terms of finances for a lot of teams, you know, it's tough. So respect to every club out there, really. I can't stress that enough.
No, great. And Dan as well, obviously we've got some great questions from Mickey at the end just to finish off in a moment, but Dan as well, I mean, any teams that you've been out and watched so far and you kind of think what they're doing down there, or wow, how are they up there? I know you've been to loads of games this season.
It's not a team I've actually been to watch yet, but I am, surprised in a good way with Chester Street United, because like you think of their trend, if you will, of over the last couple of seasons, it often been a case. You maybe get to Christmas time, they'd be sort of down there struggling a little bit, which you perhaps expect with. Such young players getting the first taste of senior football. It can be a bit of a culture shock. But then in the second half of the season, they really, kick on and push themselves up the league and survive reasonably comfortably in the end. But it just seems this season they've just come out and hit the ground running pretty much straight away. They're not a million miles off of the playoffs and that kind of thing. So you think of it, when they have their second half of the season, the younger players adapting to senior football phase, that could bode extremely well for them, and they could well be the team that goes on that run, like maybe nabs one of the last one or two playoff spots. So I've got to say Chester Street United, I mean, teams that I was maybe expecting a bit more of. I think Redcar Town and Billingham Town. I won't lie. I saw those two sides play each other in September, and the game actually finished 4-0 to Billingham Town, but that didn't actually tell you the full story of the game. I think it was the two sides that, for the most part, they almost cancel each other out. But then Redcar Town, Billingham Town, just managed to get those. Just managed to get a few goals to make the so the scoreline made it look maybe a bit more comfortable what it actually was for them in that game. But then by the same token, I saw Billingham Town again a couple of weeks later at home to Prudder. They got beat 1-0, and just from when you looked at the caliber of players that they were signing, that kind of thing, I left that game, and it was one of those where I thought, I was maybe expecting a little bit more from them, but I'm not discrediting Prudder for that in any way. They went down there, they did the job, they went back up the road with the points, and to be fair to Prudder that night, they had a couple of decent chances. They weren't like it wasn't just a case of get the goal and then shut up shop. Not at all. It was just it was just one of those where it would just wasn't happening for Billingham Town. But I'll tell you, I know we've touched on Alnwick there, and I know they're having a bit of a bad run at the minute, but in terms of their overall play, the energy they bring to each game, I think they've adapted really, really well. I saw them at Darlington Town, and they were 2-0 down at half time, but they weren't playing badly. And I think with the way that game went, I don't think anyone was really surprised that they managed to come from 2-0 down to get the point in the end. But if anything, they probably even should have won that game. But then you look at Darlington Town, didn't really play too well in that game, but still got something out of it. I mean, albeit they'll be disappointed with the fact that they lost the 2-0 lead, but it maybe showed that they've got more than enough, more than what it takes to be at least settled at this level. The fact that they can maybe not be at the best, but still get, but still manage to get something out of the game.
Yeah, really good shout there. Before we get on for our predictions, just touched on some of Mickey's comments there. Just mentioning Wealdstone and the FA Cup, like I say, massive weekend for some of the non-league clubs again. It'd be nice to see if we got some North East sides, but unfortunately not. And another one which I absolutely love, obviously food and football, two good things together. You just mentioned at the bottom there, just trying to find it, who does the best sausage roll in the league? I mean, I'm not touching on sausage rolls, but I must say when we went Billingham-Synthonia in the committee room, the old lady in there, she made some homemade, I think it was corned beef pie, mince pie, steak pies. They were absolutely fantastic. And I love the little bee at Chelsea Street Town as well, the little hut that they've got at the side of the stand, obviously selling the cans out there, which is it's class as well. But any food, any drink kind of things that stood out for yourself so far this season?
I'm going to promote ours. We get our mince and onion pies, Jen and Lisa in the cafe. While you're eating, I recommend them, Steve, on Tuesday night when you come to Bedford Terrace.
Well, I mean,
absolutely stunning.
See, this is the irony here, because I'm actually a vegetarian, so
Sorry,
so
I'll have your pie instead.
Yeah, you can have mine. So I'm actually kind of.
We're not big on vegetarian food at the cafe. I'll see if I get something in especially for you.
Nowhere's big on vegetarian food.
I can imagine nowhere's big,
or even in league football. To be honest with you, it's usually I forget where we were recently. In fact, I'll tell you, it was at Darlington Town. It wasn't even our game; it was actually your game against Darlington Town a few weeks ago.
The bar outside.
Yeah, where they had the bar outside.
The bar outside. Yeah.
I was there with a mate of mine from the club, and we had no game, so we came down just to check it out, and we went to the food van, and I said to the lass, "So have you got any vegetarian options?" And she was like, "I'll do you a bun with a slice of cheese in if you want." I was like, and it was freezing as well that day, and I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice to have something warm? You know what I mean? But no, I'm wasted. I mean, I could probably tell you who does the best chips in the league, but I don't even really eat them because they give me indigestion. So I'm the worst person in the world to give a viewpoint on food, but. Certainly, but definitely more clubs need to offer vegetarian options. So anyone who's watching, you know what I mean, we go meat free and plant based burgers, and we're laughing.
Good shot. Anything yourself, Don? You been out on your travels?
Well, obviously, James just mentioned the pies at when obviously Yarmouth Eaglescliffe using Bedford Terrace. I think I had one when I went. When it was Yarmouth Eaglescliffe's home game against Billingham Town last season, I think I had one, and from memory, it actually was pretty good. And now I've mentioned it, I've got kind of a good mind to go to that game at is it at Bedford Terrace, Yarmouth against Thornaby?
Yeah, Tuesday night, yeah.
Yeah, so kind of got a good mind to go to that, actually. Yeah, so I might invest. I mean, I'm not much of I don't particularly like onions that much, but if I got other pies on offer, then I'll certainly tuck into one of those. But yeah, I think with regards to food in the Northern League, I think the ones that everyone raves about is obviously Northallerton Town. Can be a little bit on the pricey side, but I think for what you get, for how freshly it's prepared and stuff like that. Yeah, you really, really can't go wrong. I absolutely love the burgers there. It's I don't even get chips with it because the burger just makes me that full as it is. I think I'd pulled pork with chips there. Which was kind of nice. Another place that obviously does pretty good food is Crook, and everyone raves about. Everyone raves about the the black and amber burger?
Black and amber burger, yeah, the black pudding, yeah.
Yeah, which is good. But the first time I ever went to Crook, I actually had the chicken curry, and I can fully recommend that because that was that was as good as what I've had from Indian restaurants and takeaways in the past. It was absolutely banging.
Mickey just mentioned his favourite sausage rolls at Wickham. That one, so I have to keep an eye out for that one as well. But it just ties in with Mickey with one of his questions that we're going to go for to finish the show. Great show, lads, and great guests. But questions, obviously, who's going to be winning Division 1, Division 2 in the playoffs? And I think looking at, I think before the start of the season, I'm sure I said Billingham-Synthonia for the second division, but obviously re-changing that one. I mean, looking at Division 1 first, I always said Blythe Town before the start of the season, Division 1 title, so I'm going to stick with that. In Division 2, I think it'll be close. Some great sides in there. possibly kind of see a Wrecker, possibly Newcastle Blue Star playoff. And I think just depending on who gets the home game and stuff, I think the Blue Star with that crowd, I think that would be the massive turn. I think that could be put them in their favour. Division 2, I said obviously Billy, I fancied Horden as well before the season. I think just with the players. I know our obviously player sponsor Jack Pound, I met him on Saturday as well. What a great player he is. Just bringing in midfielders into play, great first touch as well. So I was going to go for Horden, but I really fancy Yarm in the playoffs as well. Great side in there as well. But James, start with yourself. Who are you going for winners in playoffs?
I'm going for Red Athletic to win Division 1 and Shildon in the playoffs. I just think they've got that kind of experience and being there. Obviously, last season, good run, and they've just kind of a slow start of the season, but they've had a really good run of form lately.
Yeah,
I just think they've had I'm thinking they've had their bad patch potentially, and so I'm going to go for Shildon for the playoffs. And then Division 2, I think Horden will win the league. And there's only one team I'm going to pick to go in the playoffs there. last minute late goal to win to win the playoffs, and I have a full scale coronary heart attack on the side because I can't take the can't cope with the pressure and the.
It's got to be Atkinson to score, surely.
You would have thought so, since he's got 28 for the season. He's just the ultimate bagsman at the moment. He's just scoring for fun.
Yeah. And yourself, Steve?
Again, I think for me, you've got to back Redcar Athletic for the first division title. I think if they don't win it, then they've really failed. I think for them this season. You know what I mean? I'm sure that they at the club would agree with that. I think that their objective this season, with the squad that they've put together, with the management they've brought in, it has to be to win the league. You know what I mean? And if they don't, then they've underachieved massively. Playoffs, it's for me, it's the first division playoffs. I mean, it could be any of them. Mm-hmm. You've put a pin in. You know what I mean? It's that tight for me. I think anything could happen in those kind of playoff games. So I mean, I've gone with Borough Rangers because I think it'd just be interesting to see how they adapt to a further step up. Mm-hmm. Second division, Horden or Yarm for the title. I think we've probably not gained enough points at this point to kind of really try and make a run for it. I think the next 3 games, however, for us, I mean, I'm not saying that I don't expect us to win the title, but the next 3 games are really going to make or break our season going forwards. So for me, I think it's hard to pick between Horden and Yarm, and playoffs. Back ourselves, of course. You know what I mean? It'll be a 1-0 defensive. What's it called? Catenaccio kind of style display from our lads. It'll be the most boring playoff final known to man, but if we win it, success really. I think for us to take the team from where we were at the beginning of the season, the situation the club was in, to even be in the playoffs for me in one season is fantastic. So, if we were to go up, it would be fantastic. Really, really, really good, So for me, I'd like to see that. And if not, there's always next season. You know what I mean? We build and we go again. But no, I think it's tight. It's hard to make any kind of even if you look at the stats and the form and stuff. I mean, anything could happen between now and the end of the season, really. Certainly, if we have bad weather, if we get a bad winter, and there's postponements and fixtures pile up, and you've got teams playing 3 games in a week and crazy stuff like that, who knows? But like we've said earlier on, it's certainly going to be an interesting run in between now and the end of April.
It's going to be brilliant.
So I'm looking forward to it.
Exciting times ahead. And Dan, any mixes in there as well?
Okay, so for Division 1, I'm going to agree with these two, and I'm going to go with Redcar Athletic. I think I think they've just got what it takes this year. They've got the experience. They can bat away an opponent at any given time, but at the same time, they can grind out if they really need to. And for the playoffs, I'm just going to go for Borough Rangers. I just think where they're at. at the minute, I think they're in quite a good place as a club. I mean, I know a lot of people aren't, too keen to go to the ground at the minute, but I know that like behind the scenes are sort of doing what they can to get it improved, like get a clubhouse installed, that kind of thing. So I think this is maybe the next kind of step in their journey, and I think when it comes to it, I think they really will come good. I think also we've chatted a little bit there about like what happens if we hit a bit of a rough patch with the weather over the next couple of months, or and you're getting games called off quite a lot. Like obviously because of their 3G pitch and stuff like that, probably one of the teams that wouldn't be as affected by that. I mean, they might have the odd away game called off, but home games, generally speaking, I think they'd be all right. I mean, obviously there might be one reason or other why they might, like I don't know, that it's a bit too unsafe for the opposition to travel, that kind of thing. But I think if it does come to that, I think coming towards the end of the season, they would have had to have played like however many games in a week, and I think they'll get themselves in a position where they are ready for to take on a playoffs, whether that's they're maybe making some of their players play for their under 23s. So they're playing I think it's the North Riding League, isn't it? Right. So even if it's just that kind of thing, just to get them just to keep the match fitness up, get them ready for that. I think so. That's why I'm kind of backing them to go up via the playoffs. Division 2, I'm going to say I think Yarm and Horden will swap places. I just do fancy Yarm to win the league. But that being said, I do fancy Horden to win the playoffs. But if it's Horden that win the league, then I'd say that at this moment in time that I'd fancy Yarm to win the playoffs. So that is kind of my predictions for the rest of this season.
Oh, brilliant, excellent. Like Mickey's just saying there, great show, gents, being a great view and taking part in as well. And I'd like to say, very biased, but I must say, what an advert for honestly the Northern League. Fantastic guests. Honestly, thank you so much, lads, for coming out tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been good. Cheers.
Excellent. Just trying to remember off the top of my head. I've got a few busy days coming up. So Sunday, we've got our National League mid-season review. Dan's back on as well. We're familiar with that too. Gateshead fans coming on to chat about that one. Monday night, we've got the National League. Is it the North? And then we've got on the Tuesday, the Division 1 East, and another league as well. Like I say, I've got so many shows coming up before the winter period as well. I'll get as many as we can, so keep viewing for them. But again, like I say, keep supporting your North East non-league sides. Keep getting out there. Keep buying your drinks, your pin badges, your programs. Just keep supporting your team as much as you can and help them throughout that. Obviously, the winter period is always tough for sides as well. But again, thank you everyone so much for watching. And like I say, please keep it that subscribe. See you on Dan's channel as well. Fantastic channel. And James, Steve, and Dan, thank you so much for coming on the short night.
No bother. Cheers.
Pleasure as always.
Thanks a lot, guys. Cheers.